Alright guys, welcome to Duck Chronicles, Season 4, Episode 4. And this is going to be a Q&A segment with the ducks. Fairly long one because, boy, I got a bunch of questions queued up from you guys there. The ducks just got their habitat cleaned out, so they're all happy and snazzy and not stinking for a change. But all they really did was get a top dressing. I put down about another inch of the aspen shavings, cleaned out their feeder, cleaned out the water, gave them new water, and they've already got it kind of skanky looking. They will get in like swimming water and poo and all. That's not the problem. That's not why they're skanking this up. If you watch what they're doing now, they're going right from the feeder to the water, and then from the water to the feeder, and then from the feeder right back to the water. And they're using that water to wet their feed. They're using it to clean their beaks out. And remember, I use a feed that's the main protein element to it is peanut, so that I can avoid soy. And so they're kind of making peanut butter in a way. And so that is part of why they messed that water up so quick. And they also just, you know, if it wasn't for that water catcher, I'm telling you, this brooder would just be a mess. It was one of the greatest things we ever came up with. And they're having their drink. And you know, I started this video before, and it was during the day, and my granddaughter threw a fit, and I had to punt, and that's why it's been a couple days longer than I wanted to get episode 4 up for you. She's gone now. It's late in the afternoon. TV's even out of service. We have a cable and internet outage, so the house is quiet. I figured it'd be a good time to have a bit of 23-year-old rum and enjoy an evening drink with the birds and answer your questions. So let's get right on it. First question was, Toni on the blog said, I don't understand what you mean about getting stuck and getting killed. Well, if you see like this water catcher thing here, what we've had is birds actually shove themselves up under there. I know that I have no food, guys. I really don't. I have no food. Stop eating me. Shove themselves like up under there and squish themselves. And anything that's kind of a fixed element that doesn't move, they can do that with. And we really never had ducks get under that thing. What we've had is turkey poults do it. I had a turkey poult that got under there 3 times, and I saved him twice, and on the 3rd time he managed to kill himself. So young birds and any kind of a hole or place they can wedge themselves into don't go together. What we did here is we put a bunch of aspen down on both sides and kind of nested that to kind of cover up the hole for them. And these guys, 10 birds, week old now, 8 days old now, and everybody's just doing fantastic. You can see the growth already compared to the first couple episodes. So that's what I'm talking about there, Toni. Next up, Walt Lars said, how is processing a duck different than processing a chicken? Mechanically, it's the same. You do everything the same. If you're plucking them, the big thing with ducks is they're a lot harder to pluck. You need a higher scalding temperature. If you're going to do a meat duck, probably jumbo pecking is probably your best bet. These are Rollins. They make a decent dual-purpose bird. I have a processor out in a town called Weatherford that processes ducks for $4 a bird. If I do process any birds for meat, I am not doing it myself at $4. I feel like I can't afford to do it myself for $4 a bird. They take a lot longer than a chicken. You can skin them. That makes them go fast, but duck skin is fantastic, so really don't want to do that. And you guys don't worry, you're not getting processed. No, you guys are long-term flock birds for an egg-laying flock. Next up, V says, will your ducks attract other waterfowl? And I think they can to a degree. You know, there's a reason duck hunters use decoys. But if you have a backyard without a pond or anything like that, and you just have a typical situation, you're probably not going to attract a lot of waterfowl. What really attracts your waterfowl is water, lakes and ponds and stuff like that. Now, Kirsten said that she had this happen, that they had a pond and she had a bunch of wild birds showing up and eating a lot of their feed. Well, one way you can mitigate that is to put their feed somewhere that they're comfortable going, but a wild bird isn't. So I always recommend you have a holding area for your birds at night so you can find your eggs in the morning and put their feed in their holding area. That makes it easy to get them back to their holding area. And generally your wild mallards and such aren't going to want to go there. And then if they're on your pond or whatever, it's really not that big a deal. Kirsten also said when she got geese, the ganders, especially in the mating season, pretty much ran off all the interlopers. Anybody that wasn't part of the flock and accepted, when they showed up, they got chased away. So a little long neck mafia action might go a long way toward alleviating that if you have a problem. But the truth is, the reason there's so many birds showing up at people's places, there's just so many dadgone many of them now. When I was a kid in school in Pennsylvania, we had a goose tag. I think you got 2 a year. You could shoot 2 geese a year, and you got a tag like a deer tag for a goose. And now the daggone things are everywhere. I think there's a lot of places that you have limits as many as 6 a day or even more on geese, and equally liberal limits on many species of duck. So the conservation efforts of the last 30 years have really brought waterfowl back in a great way. But that means they're going to have more of them showing up. And I think it's more about stuff like that than it is the fact that you have, domestic ducks. Tina asked me about brooding ducks and chickens in the same brooder, and I don't recommend that. And the reason is, if you look at a duck's bill, they got that little rounded bill there. And it doesn't do a lot of damage when they peck each other. And they constantly peck each other. Unfortunately, they're all laying down now, but earlier when they were eating, they were doing a lot of pecking at each other. One's doing it there, so they're kind of, they're grooming each other. Right there, that one's grooming the other one. And a lot of times when they're eating, if they have food stuck on their beaks, you'll see one grab the food off of the other one's beak. And they do a lot of kind of pecking at each other. And because they basically, think of it, they have like a butter knife or a clothespin for a beak, It just doesn't do any damage. So they're accustomed to it, and it's intrinsic in them to do that to each other and to have it done to them. Chickens do it more for a dominance reason. They fight over territory. They look for their place in the pecking order, etc. And a chicken has a little knife. They have a sharp little beak. Anybody be surprised if you've ever been poked pretty hard by a little chick. It doesn't hurt bad, but it kind of you're like, wow, all of that from a little chicken beak. And so when they start pecking at each other and they start pecking at the ducks, you tend to end up having issues then with, the ducks allowing more of it than they should, and it can lead to problems. I've had chickens brood ducks, and then there's no problem because they're out in the open and they can move even if there's baby chickens around. It's the confined space of a brooder, because when I told Tina in the comments, basically I don't advise it, she said, well, can they ever go together, and if so, how old? I think they can pretty much go together as soon as they're out of a confined space like a brooder. The problem here is when they start having that interaction and the duck realizes, hey, this creature is not like me and I don't like what it does. It doesn't really have a good defense, and it doesn't have anywhere it can go to just get away and get some space. So once you get them out of the brooder, then ducks and chickens can live together quite happily, no problem at all. Somebody asked me, let's see, this is Inarainyplace, says, what about protection from avian predators? She has eagles and hawks and stuff like that. We do have some hawks around. I don't have a lot of pressure from avian predators, but we do have some. My number one defense against avian predators is my dog Charlie. I have trained him that any large flying bird is a bad bird. And when I say bad bird, his ears go up and the hairs on his butt go up and he starts barking and he wants to fight with the bad bird, which he'll never catch, but they don't know that. And so if we have any kind of unusual avian activity going around outside, I put him out there and tell him the bad bird's there. And after a bit of that, then the hawk or whatever decides they'd rather be somewhere else. He's not a dedicated livestock guardian dog, but if you have dogs that generally stay outside all day long, and you just teach them that bad birds are bad birds, it works pretty good. They don't have to be any kind of special dog. Basically, the only thing we did is use that voice. Oh, buddy, oh, you better get it. And just show it to him, and eventually they make that connection. That thing is not supposed to be here, and he chases them away. Inarainyplace had also asked about basically using these kind of mobile umbrellas as overhead cover and moving around with them, but they thought it would be a logistical nightmare. Maybe, but you're on to something with overhead cover. If you have good overhead cover, it makes it a lot harder for those avian predators to get in and get the birds. And it makes them have to take more time, and they are predators and prey, and they know that, so they don't like to take more time. The The other thing that you can do in regard to that, though, is make sure you have drakes in your flock. The drakes are really good at looking out. Whenever you see a group of ducks and drakes and everybody's laying down, bedded down and sleeping, once those drakes get mature, you'll almost always see at least one head up. It'll be one of the drakes, and they'll just be paying attention to what's going on, and they'll sound the alert much like a rooster will for the same thing. They can't fight, but they can at least make them aware, hey, there's something dangerous. That's why I like to have at least 2 drakes, because that one drake eventually is going to want to nap too, and you'll see them sometimes kind of, make a little noise to each other, and one head will go down and the other head will come up. Ganders with your geese are really good about that, so keeping some geese with your ducks like we were talking about earlier may be a good thing for that as well. Next up, Alyssa Mennillo said, what about cold climates like Connecticut? Well, Alyssa, one of the good things about ducks is they're cold climate birds. They like it cold. Now, when they're babies like this, they can get too cold pretty easy, especially if they don't have a mother taking care of them. But if you look up, there's a channel called 50 Ducks in a Hot Tub, and this dude lives up in like northern British Columbia or Alberta or something like that. It gets way colder than Connecticut. My good friend John Dowie at Dowie Farms, he keeps ducks in New Hampshire north of you. It gets colder there. So it's really not that big a deal. What they need to have is a place that they can get out of the cold, get blocked from the wind, and as long as they have that and have access to it, they can pretty much handle about anything North America can dish out once they're mature and adults. I've seen these birds, not these particular ones, but I've seen our ducks on certain days when it's like 35 degrees out, 28 degrees out, and the sun is shining, and I see them choose to sit in the shade sometimes in that temperature rather than sit in the sun in that temperature. So that tells you they can handle it. Additionally, I've seen them when there's a lot of snow on the ground, because we do get snow here in Texas, believe it or not. I've seen a big group of them sit together and use their body heat to melt the snow to make mud to play in. So they really don't have a huge problem with the cold. You do want to make sure you have a place that they can get into, and at night you probably want it to be something that can be closed up, helps protect from predators, and it helps keep them warm with their body heat. But your climate is not something that prohibits the keeping of ducks. I just would not try bringing young birds in this time of year. I'd bring them in the spring and have them nice and fully grown by the time you get into your next cold of your mid-autumn. Lor Farr says, what about abnormal behavior such as excessive quacking? The quacking excessive is probably, our estimation of it, not the ducks. If you have one duck that does a lot of quacking, she's probably the flock boss. It's almost exclusively your females that make most of the vocal sounds of your birds. And you'll have that female say, quack, 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 quack. She's telling everybody what's up. That's probably more than anything else. Now, you might have a weird duck that just quacks all the time for no reason, but generally speaking, your most vocal duck is your flock boss. And they're kind of like military units. Once you get over a certain number of ducks, then you'll have like these little mini platoons, and each one of those will have like their own platoon boss. And they don't seem to have a commanding general or anything over everybody. They each seem to break into those areas, and they'll fluidly move between them. Vocals are very important to ducks. It's how they communicate with each other. I've seen a big group of ducks sitting. One duck decides that she wants to go out and forage. She'll get up and quack. Some of the other ducks will answer her, and a portion of them will get up and leave. If nobody gets up, she sits back down because they don't really tend to go anywhere alone. Ducks are social animals. That's why I always keep saying I think a minimum flock size is 4 and 6 is better. Sometimes ducks die. We've had people that have had a pair of ducks come beg us to sell them one duck because they lost one of their ducks, and we usually try to accommodate them when they did ask that. And every time we've done it, we've had them tell us it's brought that duck back to life, basically. They are absolutely plumb miserable animals when they're alone, and that's just not right, because you guys aren't miserable critters, are you? You just got to have friends. That's how it is. You're like people. You're social birds, huh? Next up, Southeast Pastured Products says, what about HOA ducks? She needs ducks that are quiet and not fly over a 6-foot fence. Well, the good news and the bad news, these ducks, when they're grown, full size, they get fat, they really don't fly well. Almost all your domestic ducks, once they're fully grown, they don't fly at all. And if they do, it's like they fly over a food dish. Indian runners can sometimes fly because they're so light-bodied, but in general, most of your full-size mallard breeds don't. And almost every domestic duck is a mallard breed. You know what that means? They all quack. Quack, 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 quack. Your quiet duck, the only quiet duck I know of is a Muscovy duck, and Muscovy ducks can fly. So your only option there would be to get Muscovy ducks and clip their wings. And you got to stay on it. And when they go to molt, you got to be on them right away before they get to the ability to fly, because they will fly all over the place. They will fly up on your neighbor's porch roof, and they will poop everywhere, and they will be a problem. If you keep their wings clipped, they won't do that. So that'd be about the only thing I'm going to say. If you're in an HOA, ducks may not be the bird for you, because they do make noise, and they are kind of something that's easily seen and noticed. You may do better with something like bantam chickens or quail than ducks. That's just my opinion. Handy Homesteady YouTube username, is now starting the Chicken Chronicles, inspired by the Duck Chronicles. Good for you. I think that's cool, and people maybe want to check you out. Again, his name is Handy Homesteady. It's 2 words. Serra Do Japi says, how much water a month for 8 ducks? Well, you're going to need to make sure ducks have drinking water, but you're also going to need to make sure they have daily clean bathing water. And if you give them a kiddie pool in the morning, it will not be clean in the afternoon. You're going to need to dump it, and you're going to need to move it every day, just like we've shown you in past years. Because if you dump it in the same place every day, you're going to have a completely matted down, packed down mud hole. And they will kill everything there just by their mechanical action of doing it. And you won't like that. So you can move your pool every day. And if you have trees and stuff, you move it by a tree. And every morning you dump that nasty pool, or every evening dump your nasty pool, fertilize the tree, and move it to the next tree. It'd be one thing to do. We do that here all the time. As far as the quantity, then, you'll need, whatever you end up needing to keep them to drink. So you have some sort of a drinking water solution for them in their holding area. And when they're ranging around there in the day, you need that pool. Well, I actually did the math. A kiddie pool is going to hold about 25 gallons of water, so you'll need 25 gallons of water a day to feed it. That's $750 or 750 gallons a month. And I looked up, what's that actually cost? Because I'm on a well, so I don't even think about that. Water tends to cost on average 3 cents per 10 gallons, so the cost would be about $2.25 for a month's worth of water. And I think if that's a concern, you're in a different situation. You're not worried about water, you're worried about feeding them. They're going to eat a heck of a lot more than that. Ducks, if you have really good forage, should be at about 1/4 to 0.3 pounds of feed per day per duck. If you don't have really good forage, then you're looking at about 1/2 to 0.6 of a pound of feed per day per duck. So that's going to run you, even with cheap feed, far more than the water will. So if you have concerns about $2 in water a month for your ducks, I really suggest you don't do ducks, because I don't think you're in the right financial place to do it. Jason Kavanaugh says, is it harder to get organic or natural feed with a small flock since you buy less? I have not found that to be the case. We buy our feed by the bag. We don't actually buy a organic feed. We buy an all-natural, GMO-free feed with peanut milk, because the only organic feed we can find has soy. And going back to when we were doing this commercially and selling eggs, it was more important to our customers that they had no GMO and no soy than it was that it be called organic. They were worried about soy and they were worried about GMO, and I don't blame them. We buy by the bag from a food store. When we were buying $1,000, $1,200 worth of feed a month, we didn't get a discount. They didn't sell to us for any less than going there and buying, 2 bags of feed a month. So I don't think that's really the issue. The issue is what's available in your market, period. I would say this. If you have to feed Purina layer crumbles to have birds, the product you will produce in that egg will be so superior to anything you can buy in a store anyway. If you're getting them out and getting them forage, if you're feeding them sunflower sprouts like we make and things like that, do it anyway. It's not optimum, but it's 100 times better than what you can buy as far as an egg product or a meat product in the store, in my opinion. And ANCAP Snack says, why did we shut down our commercial operation? We have talked about this before. But basically, we had a lifestyle change. My wife was running this business, and I was taking care of the birds, but she was running the egg side business, collecting the eggs, cleaning the eggs, packaging the eggs, managing our sales channel, handling all the sales, doing all the customer service. Well, we now have our grandchildren here every day. We have our granddaughter all day, and we have our grandson after school until he goes back home to his parents. And during the summer, we have both of them here all day, most days. And it just wasn't a thing that she really wanted to do anymore, and I didn't blame her. We started it so she would have something of her own, and now she's got the kids, and I think that's a fair trade. We also wanted to rest the property. It had been grazed heavily and fertilized heavily by the birds for 4 years, and it had a huge seed bank and a huge fertility bank built up, and I knew we were going to go to a smaller flock. But at the time, this spring, I thought it made sense to just completely take all pressure off the land, give it a full year of recovery. It ended up being a good year to do it, and give it a full season of recovery, because our summer was brutal with drought. So that's the why, where, and Walt about that. And the reality was as well that as we trying to have her do less, we had to hire someone. And while the operation was profitable with us doing it, when you started paying somebody who wasn't anywhere near as good at it as you, and the people you pay will never be as good at it as you, it wasn't profitable anymore. Between not doing enough account management and getting us new restaurants and stuff like that, and paying him, we were not making money. And I love having a little flock as a hobby. I don't want a big flock as a hobby. This is something to tiptoe into, see if it's for you, and yeah, you can do it. You can make it work, but it's a real business. You have to treat it like a real business, and that means handling that sales channel, not just taking care of your birds. Anyway, any more questions, put them below. I'm hoping in episode 5 we will be outside in the duck tractor. In fact, once I wrap up here, I'm going to go out there and see if I can dig that thing out and plan on maybe getting you guys out in the grass tomorrow. What do you think? You want to go? Everybody's waking up and getting a drink. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 4, season 4, Duck Chronicles.